Everyone, please give a warm welcome to Orest, who's one of the ZK Warsaw founders and also co-founder and CTO at T1 Protocol. He'll be delivering a talk on unifying Ethereum with real-time proofs made possible today thanks to TEEs. So everyone, please give a warm welcome and round of applause to Orest.
Thank you so much, Namita. Thank you, everyone, for having made it here and for having made it at 4:45. This is not remarkable. And today, I'd like to talk a little bit about a project I've been busy with for the last 3 quarters or so. And this is going to be the inaugural, like the first time, we are actually presenting what we've been researching. So please bear with me. If whatever that I'm talking about does come as a surprise, or you have something to add a question, please do raise your hand. We have microphones that will be given to you, and I'm happy to take questions as I go, and also I'm happy to try to adapt to where you guys are at. So maybe if I can ask a quick show of hands, who knows what a TEE is? Trusted Execution Environment? Okay, like half of the people here. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's a good start. I've just realized when looking at the slides, unifying Ethereum with real-time proofs is kind of ambiguous. I don't mean to unify Ethereum and real-time proofs. I mean use real-time proving, a concept we will come to talk about, in order to unify Ethereum's siloed ecosystems that we are dealing with now. Okay, so let's talk about real-time proving. Let's talk about how we can unify Ethereum, but in a way that's possible today, in a way that makes sense and can be achieved already. This is T1, one of the base sponsors as well. I'm Orest. What is Ethereum like nowadays? Well, we are seeing the result of what came to be known as a roll-up-centric scaling roadmap for Ethereum, which was basically kicked off a few years ago, more and more intensely and consciously in the ecosystem, that led to a shift from trying to scale Ethereum itself, the blockchain that we now know as the L1, layer 1, towards a system that allows for convincing Ethereum L1 about its state. That's what we got to know as L2s or rollups or other versions of L2s such as validiums or there's even more. Now, what this led to, it turns out, is we did indeed get to a situation where a user is able to trade on a DEX or get this NFT or like do some transaction on chain in one of those roll-up ecosystems at a low cost per transaction and at a high transaction throughput relatively. And so we managed to scale the performance dimension. However, this came at a cost of what used to be possible with Ethereum, what is kind of a promise, a very valuable property of a blockchain, which is composability, which is being able to have this one smart contract living somewhere, do something, and another smart contract living somewhere else, use the output of the original smart contract as its input. And that in a way where the two smart contracts don't really need to understand each other. They don't need to be aware of one another. This is what we used to, or what we started calling the Lego blocks of DeFi, and what some people claim is the reason for DeFi's large adoption. And so this we lost. This is a property that as we add users to this ecosystem called Ethereum, which de facto means adding users to Scroll, the ZK rollup, or Arbitrum, the optimistic rollup, and so on, that this is a property we don't get to continue to enjoy in the same quality, in the same, for instance, delay. Now, I'm talking specifically about delay because this is something that is relevant with respect to how rollups work. Optimistic rollups obviously require a large challenge period, usually 7 days, in order to have a situation where a participant in Ethereum, an on-chain entity, such as a smart contract, can be convinced about the state of a given smart contract living in the optimistic world. Now, with ZK rollups, we have a situation where proving the state transition of that off-chain system can be done in a way faster way. We are talking about the order of magnitude of hours, maybe minutes, depending on the situation. So that sounds like a big improvement. Now, what do we mean by real-time proving? Well, by real-time proving, we mean a situation where such a ZK rollup, a ZK off-chain system, is able to convince Ethereum smart contracts about its state during the slot of the current block, or maybe the next block, like depending how you define it. So very quickly, the block time in Ethereum is 12 seconds right now. This means coming up with a convincing, so like a complete ZKP of some subset of this off-chain system, let's say of some Ethereum transactions, Ethereum-compatible transactions, in a matter of few seconds. So we are not there yet, and because we are not there yet, because we need those minutes or hours or days to settle on Ethereum, to get out from this island of liquidity, this island of ecosystem participants, dApps, smart contracts, onto Ethereum, this creates this composability fragmentation. This creates this situation where I can't have my 5K USDC on Arbitrum and trade them for 2 ETH on Scroll. And maybe then use the 2 ETH on Scroll as collateral to take out a loan against DAI on Optimism. I can't do that. I need to do the one thing, wait for it to settle, so basically bridge this information into Ethereum, and then only can I take advantage of the output. So this creates liquidity silos or islands. Now, an important consideration here, an observation we've been making, is that very few indeed users of the Ethereum ecosystem end up going and transacting on rollups. We see that less than a fifth of Ethereum, I think this is users or addresses, yeah, addresses, are actually active on a rollup. Now, this can have many explanations. One of the insights we've been seeing recently at T1 is that people who deal with larger amounts, they don't want to commit to locking the assets in a given chain, in a given island. Maybe there's missing liquidity. This is kind of a self-propelling cycle where there's little liquidity in a rollup, so the big guy with a lot of liquidity will not go there, so there is going to be little liquidity. And so this is a situation where we see like we clearly need some more scaling. We clearly aren't done scaling. Some would say, well, not a problem. ZK is getting fast. We have Ariel here who's been talking about speeding up FFT, whatnot, and there's all of those mathematical primitives and all of the hardware acceleration and those companies racing to and announcing a faster and faster approver every week on Twitter, at least. But then again, we need to ask ourselves, what is fast? Like, what sort of orders of magnitude are we talking about here? And how does this tie in with unit economics? Like how do these costs and delays get distributed? And so again, real-time proving. By that we mean coming up with a proof for an Ethereum block in a matter of few seconds. And actually, because of timing games and kind of deficiencies of the current MEV landscape in Ethereum, this actually needs to be even faster if you want to actually compete. But let's say we are fine with having a few blocks delay, like a 20-second delay. Like until we get there, we need to make significant advances, significant breakthroughs. And so my thesis is we need a solution that will bridge the time until then and prepare the ecosystem for growth in that direction. So what do we mean by RTP, real-time proving, that is made possible today? Well, I asked you about TEs. You obviously, half of you are familiar. The first answer that you will hear when faced with a situation where someone says, hey, let's fix security with a TE, will be, well, 0 days. There will be 0-day vulnerabilities, and all of the funds from a deposit contract will be stolen at that very moment. And that is very true, of course. Like, you should not rely on a TE alone. We should rely on a hybrid system. We should rely on defense at depth. And so what we mean by real-time proving today is actually a combination of TE, ZK, and economic security, restaking. SGX is obviously a good example here. Just a few days ago, there was a big piece of news that broke on Twitter about how, I think, 10-year-old servers with unpatched software and not applied security measures were vulnerable to extracting some ciphertexts. Still a way to go until you break and steal all the funds from the bridge, but then again, we don't have a proper system out there in the wild where a significant amount of funds would be at stake. So this is indeed something we want to design the system with. Like, we want to keep this in mind and design the system such that it may grow to trillions of value secured without having this prospect of, once a given threshold is reached, a state actor will come in, break the T, steal everything. So how can we get there? Well, let's apply incremental RTP, incremental real-time proving, in a way that is parameterized and can react to developments in the market, that can react to developments in speeding up ZK compute, or maybe changes on the crypto economic front. And so incrementally, our vision is to approach this ultimate goal of what some people tend to call the unified states, or United States of Ethereum. Just some random logos here, and just random selection. And the question is, how do we get there in an incremental way? How can we get there without just having to wait until ZK is fast enough to be able to prove stuff in a matter of 1 second? Well, this is where our proposed design comes into play. And I'd like to get your input on this, actually. I mentioned I'd be happy to take questions as we go. So now comes the big design diagram, and I'm happy to be challenged on this. The idea being, let's start from the user that you should be able to see over here. The idea is the user would want to reach some goal. For instance, trade a limit order. So maybe Alice has 1 ETH and wants to get USDC, at least 3,000 K of that. She would go ahead and encrypt this intent of hers and send that to a set of validators that are being actively validated, like an AVS. You can think eigenlayer restaking, that are using the economic security of Ethereum stakers. Now, those validators, they only see the ciphertext of this intent, so they can't manipulate it, they can't extract value, and so on. They wait until a couple of intents come in, and they put that into a block of ciphertexts. Now, that encrypted finalized block, or like order finalized block, then gets shared with a TE worker. This worker is running in an enclave. In our case, we're using Intel TDX right now. And that worker will execute those intents that were encrypted to its public key. So only the worker with its private key can decrypt the intents. And they will come up with what we call integrity proof, which in its simplest form is just an ECDSA signature saying, hereby I, a TE with this public key, sign off on this new state of the world, these outputs, this new state root. And it will also share the decryption key or some way for the validator to understand those ciphertext intents. And then will the validator be able to check, without doing much work actually, to check, hey, now Alice no longer has 1 ETH, and she has at least 3,000 USDC in this new state of the world, and this new set of outputs. This would lead to a match, what we call match proof passing. And this should happen in a way where this guy, this AVS validator, doesn't need to trust any of the stuff the worker is sharing with them. In particular, do they not trust the outputs, and they do not trust any plain text of Alice's intents unless they can convince themselves from the knowledge they gained here that the intents indeed match what the user originally wanted. One way of achieving this is using a commitment, a hash. And so then will the validator say, okay, I use my crypto-economic security power to hereby give the stamp of this new state, this new set of outputs, corresponding, matching the user's intents. And this set of integrity proof, match proof, and bundled transactions will make its way to Ethereum, to the deposit contract on Ethereum mainnet, and be verified, and the update resulting from this will be applied to the balances for users in T1. Now, the interesting thing about this setup is that all of this can happen very quickly because the TEE is running off-chain, and because the AVS validator, running off-chain as well, of course, has very little work to do. They are checking a simple set of constraints. And because of that, we are able to push those items to Ethereum, theoretically on every Ethereum block, every 12 seconds. And this results in this composability that we are so much looking forward to, this real-time proving that we are looking for. Now, where is this ZK component, could you ask? Well, the ZK component is an additional measure that we are thinking of applying heuristically if ever this T1 contract on Ethereum, which in the end is the only thing you care about. You only care about Ethereum. You don't care about those off-chain systems here. If this T1 contract on Ethereum figures, hey, the outflows of funds from my deposit set is suspiciously large, I'm gonna actually require an additional piece to convince me on top of these three. I'm gonna require T1 protocol to submit a zero-knowledge proof for the suspicious state transition. And now this is something that can be easily parameterized in a dynamic way, such that as ZK becomes faster, the aggressivity or aggressiveness level of this heuristic could be increased, and also as ZK becomes cheaper, this is something that can be plausibly expected of the user. And on top of that, you can think of a setup where Alice has a choice. Do I want the result of my actions, of my intents, to actually have this additional stamp of security, and maybe I want that a ZK proof be required? The same could apply for DA. We could turn the system from an L2, like a Validium style L2, into something like ZK Porter, where Alice could say, hey, I want to opt in to paying a lot more gas in exchange for having all my transaction-related data live on Ethereum directly, rather than an alternative DA, data availability solution. Any questions about this? Oh, yeah. Can we have the mic, please?
I wanted to ask about generating the match proof. So as we generate it, we have a set of encrypted intents of the interactions that are going to be processed in that block. And while generating match proof, we are going to, I assume, assess those intents. And that's all we're going to do. So using your example, we are going to have the intent of selling one Ether for some USDC, let's say. And those two conditions are going to be fulfilled, but let's say there's going to be some sort of malicious worker that is going to fulfill those intents, but is going to also, let's say, take away 1,000 USDT. So what is stopping malicious worker from doing that?
Yeah, thank you. Very good question. So indeed, creating a match proof or checking whether there's a match between the set of outputs, untrusted, and the encrypted intents is not as trivial as it might look. What the validator will be doing is they will be checking each user's, like each diff's situation. And so if there ever is a malicious T worker that comes up with a state transition that should not be allowed, it would need to take money from one of the other T1 users' balances and put it to theirs. And this is something that would break the intent checking logic for one of those users. This is one situation that you could do, that you could check. On top of that, what you could do is already in this column, could the validator run some heuristics? Could the validator run some sanity checks and, for instance, have rules where it's actually them rather than the smart contract on Ethereum who say, hey, like a certain state transition may be interesting for more complex compute than just limit orders. Maybe a certain state transition or new state route looks suspicious and I'm not gonna risk being slashed for this. I feel like I need to require a ZKP on top. This is an additional security precaution that could be applied dynamically and that could incrementally lead to like make it easy to lean on ZKP or on other techniques such as FHE, maybe MPC at some point in an incremental way. Any more questions? Okay, cool. So if you want to learn more about us, by the virtue of doing a Verifiable Summit today, we actually had a natural deadline of launching our website. It's very freshly off the press at t1protocol.com. Let me know if there's things that don't work. It's literally been published a few hours ago. And also what I encourage you to do is to join us. We are hiring for a set of positions, mainly senior engineering roles, and we will be working towards getting a first testnet available very soon. So if you want to follow us and follow the journey, you can also find us on X and other socials. Other than that, hit me up. We have a booth upstairs. I'll probably be there for a few minutes after this, or you can come and talk to us after we've finished the talks for today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Orest. And if you want to check out T1 Protocol on Twitter, I believe it's at T1 Protocol.
Exactly.
Okay.
T1 Protocol without a space, without an underscore.
Okay, perfect. And everyone, please give a big round of applause. And we'll be starting closing remarks very soon as the rest of the audience gathers on the main stage. Thank you.